Hey guys, this is Cam with another King Tut Productions video. So today I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of living in Manila. As I said before, I kind of feel like a lot of these other vlogs aren't exactly authentic. You know, when they talk about things like how they love Jollibee and Manila is just so wonderful. And, you know, compared to other cities in Asia, I mean, honestly, there's just other places that have some more interesting things to do. That being said, I really like living in Manila, and you just have to really have different expectations if you're going to live in Manila, Philippines. But it can be a wonderful place. And so that's why in my videos, I just want to be as authentic as possible and just give you some of the real pros and cons of living in Manila should you decide to move there. Now this video is obviously going to be geared towards foreigners. A lot of people are retired. Now I want to say if you're retired, you know, pension, fixed income, you're probably going to want to live in maybe the greater Manila area, because if you live in the expat areas of BGC and Makati, things like that, it's actually going to be expensive for you, probably about the same as what you were paying back home. So that's something I really want to cover. So let's go ahead and get started. The pros and cons of living in Manila. Okay, so the first thing is it's a big city with lots to do. As the Philippines' largest city, you just won't get bored if you live here. There's a plethora of things to do for people of all ages. A few of my favorite places in Manila are Art and Island Museum. It's a really cool place where you get to actually become part of the art. You can see a dolphin and seal show at Manila Ocean Park and have dinner at Intermural's old Spanish colonial settlement. If the shopping bug has bitten you, then you're definitely in luck in Manila. There's a large assortment of malls for you to choose from, the most popular with expats being Greenbelt Mall and the Mall of Asia. And I'm actually going to make a video about some of the tourist attractions in Manila, so I'm going to have an entire video on that, on specifically things to do in Manila. All right, another pro, and this is a big one, and it's easy to travel from anywhere in Manila. Being the travel hub of the Philippines, you can travel almost anywhere from Manila. This is one of my favorite parts to living in the National Capital Region. You see, most flights in the Philippines route through Manila. So that means if you want to go anywhere, even from Cebu, you have to change planes in Manila. Just to give you an idea, when I was living in Bacolod City, I wanted to go to Legazpi. I had to go through Manila, and now I want to make it clear. Now, flying in the Philippines is not like you're flying back home. So, for example, if you're going to fly on Cebu Pacific, they're always late, and if you have a connection, you have a high chance of missing your flight. So what happened to me when I was living in Bacolod City, I wanted to go see my partner in Legazpi. And so what happened was when I went, I had to change planes in Manila, but the flight was late. And so when I got to Manila, I missed my flight to Legazpi, and there was only one flight for the day. So I had to stay in a hotel, and they didn't want to pay for it. They didn't want to give me a new flight. They wanted to charge me, even though it was Cebu Pacific's fault. They wanted to charge me for another flight, and I just stood my ground and I said, no, that is not right. Let me speak to the supervisor. And then they threatened to call the police on me, and then the cop came, and I told him the only way I'm leaving from this counter is if you shoot me. I want another flight because it's not my fault. And then finally they gave me another flight. So that's just one of the things these are just part of the problems you're gonna have if you live in the Philippines. And so changing planes, it's not a good thing. You want a direct flight when you're going somewhere. And living in Manila, that's gonna be your best ticket to getting a direct flight anywhere in the Philippines and in the world, really, because even if you want to leave the Philippines, you have to route through Manila most of the time. All right, this is probably the biggest pro, and that is friendly people who speak English. I've said before in my other videos that it's a myth that Filipinos speak English. In Manila they do, but not fluently, but they're more fluently than in the provinces. But in the provinces, most of them speak their native tongues. They speak English rarely. English is kind of like a status symbol. So in some ways, they're actually afraid to speak English because they're afraid people will look at them as snooty. But that's not the case in Manila, especially in downtown Manila, Makati, BGC. Filipino people are world-renowned for their friendliness, and Manila is no exception. Filipinos love to talk and interact with foreigners. You'll have no problem making friends if you live in Manila. You can expect to be invited to play badminton with your Pinoy co-workers in less than a month. Or you can join a Facebook group and meet friendly locals who will show you around their city free of charge. Guys, I've actually had this happen. I met this guy on the bus, and we just started talking, and he's just he's just like, oh, well, let me show you here and show you there, and he did not want any money from me. I mean, Filipinos, they're just like that. They are very genuinely friendly. They even have a group called the Blah Blah Language Exchange Meeting if you want to learn Tagalog for free. And, I gotta say, the Filipino people are the biggest draw to living in the Philippines. I mean, there's a lot of junk that you're gonna have to go through if you live here, like, gosh, things not being available, crime, a lot of other things, but just dealing with the friendly, genuinely kind people makes it worth it for a lot of people. All right, next is gonna be affordability. Now, this is a little bit of a gray area because didn't I just say that you don't wanna live in Manila if you are on a fixed budget? You don't wanna live in the popular expat parts of like Makati and BGC or Bonifacio Global City. Those are the most expensive areas in the Philippines to live in. And so people like living in them because they're centrally located, so they don't have to go through a lot of traffic. They're clean, low crime rate, a lot of Western shops are around. So it just feels more like home. I personally, I didn't really get the point, because if I wanted to live in something that was Western, why not just stay in the West? I wanted the Filipino experience. And so that's why I personally lived out in Cavite. And it just felt more like the Philippines, and it was a lot cheaper. I was paying $80 a month for my apartment. Now, that being said, it was nothing like you would expect back home in the West. So if you are wanting to kind of recreate the United States or Europe, wherever you're from, then your best bet is going to be BGC and Makati, and therefore it is not affordable. But if you're willing to live in some of the other areas of Manila, maybe Alabang or in Cavite or Laguna province, which is part of the greater Manila region, but not in metropolitan Manila, then it's gonna be much cheaper. Now, keep in mind though, if you do live in those areas, you're gonna face some serious traffic problems getting into Manila. For example, Dasmariñas, where I lived, it was only about 20 miles from Makati, but it would take about 2 hours to get there. And that's another thing. When you live in the Philippines, people don't measure distance by kilometers or miles, they measure distance by time. So they'll say, oh, well, how far is this? Oh, it's about 2 hours away. Oh, it's about 3 hours away. Even if it's only maybe 10 miles or 5 kilometers or something like that, just because the traffic is so bad. Another pro, you get to wear tank tops in February. Philippines has that tropical weather. So you're gonna get to wear those wonderful tropical clothes no matter what time of the year it is. You can walk around in flip-flops and tank tops anytime you want to. So that's definitely going to be a plus. The weather's actually pretty consistent, which is a good thing. Now, you do get your rainy season and your dry season, but the concept of a dry season is a little bit of a misnomer. Anyone who's lived in the tropics knows there really is no dry season. It can rain anytime. It's just that in the dry season, it rains less. But that's why it's so green, because of all that rain. And the way it rains in Manila, it's not like it's where I'm from, California. You get these torrential downpours all day for days and days and days. It'll rain for like an hour and then you'll be good. And then maybe 2 hours later, it'll rain again and you'll be good. So it's not as disruptive to your life and your day as it is like where I was from in California. My favorite part of the Philippines is cheap pampering. One of the things I absolutely love about living in Southeast Asia is the cheap massages. So in Manila, you can get an okay massage for about $10. A really good top of the line massage from a licensed therapist is gonna run you about 1,000 pesos, which is $20 US. Now, you can actually get massages cheaper than that, cheaper than $10, but I really don't recommend them. Most of those massages are from unlicensed people who don't know what they're doing. Trust me, a good massage is worth it. Besides being very affordable, you can get a massage almost anywhere. You can't walk more than 1 kilometer in the city without seeing at least one massage parlor. Okay, next pro, and this is a very big pro, especially for retirees, is very affordable healthcare. The Philippines is known for its good quality, affordable healthcare. Just to give you an anecdote, I remember I hurt my foot while doing Muay Thai, and I went to the De La Salle hospital, and the doctor evaluated me and did an x-ray, And he said luckily it was just a stress injury. And all in all, after it was all said and done, I ended up paying about 1,400 pesos, or about $27, and that includes the x-ray. So since Filipinos are naturally friendly, they just make really good nurses. I was very happy with the care I received, and most retirees are as well. The Philippines has a visa specifically for medical tourists. According to the Philippine Department of Health, in 2016, the country received about 80,000 to 250,000 medical tourists, so that's growing. The Philippines has a lot of internationally accredited hospitals, most of them located in Manila, and I will go ahead and post a link to that in the description for you. All right, so this wouldn't be a fair video if I didn't talk about the cons of living in Manila. I think you need to know so you can make an informed decision. And so here they are. First, I talked about this, is traffic. Oh my gosh. So traffic is the worst in the world. It varies between the number 1 worst and the number 2 worst spot in the world, but suffice it to say, traffic is bad. Especially during the peak hours. I've literally passed cars walking on the sidewalk. That's how bad traffic is. And just to give you an example, the traffic is so bad that it took me and my friend 3 hours to get from Divisoria to Dasmariñas on a Sunday afternoon. So, and that's despite only being about 20 miles. So it took 3 hours to get 20 miles. Absorb that for a minute. All right, next is the high cost of living. I've covered this. Manila can be affordable, but if you're gonna live in the parts where most expats like to live, it's not that affordable. Period. So, and the reason expats like to live in those areas is because that's where the Western shops are, that it's clean, it's safe, and safety is going to be the next con we're going to talk about. And so you may say, oh, I'll just live outside those areas. Well, yeah, but your experience is going to be completely different. When you see those vlogs and those YouTube vlogs, these people having these beautiful manicured trees and clean streets and road signs that are actually readable and not damaged beyond recognition, those are in Makati and BGC. So it's not like you can just say, oh, I'm not going to live in those areas. In Makati, BGC, now you can get some really inexpensive apartments. I mean, $600 a month. I mean, you're basically just going to be living in a box at that price. But they do have some. Typical rents are gonna range from around $600 to $2,000 plus a month. Now, I will say for most expats, if you wanna live like a Western lifestyle that you're used to living in Manila, you're gonna need to be bringing in about $2,000 to $3,000 a month. And that's not just because of the cost of living, but because everything has to be imported. You know, those people, those sea workers aren't working for free. So that means it's going to add to the cost of whatever you buy. So in some ways, it could actually be more expensive to live in Manila than it would be to live back home. So you got to be really, really careful about that. Now, if you live outside of Manila, like for example, Dasmariñas or in Angeles City, things like that, then you can live on $600, $700 a month. But in Manila, to live a comfortable lifestyle that you're used to, you're probably gonna need around $2,000 to $3,000 a month. All right, next is sad but true, and it is the high crime rate. Manila has an extremely high income inequality, and income inequality equals high crime. Manila has the highest murder rate in Southeast Asia. And I'm gonna post an interesting chart so you can see how Manila compares to another big city such as Bangkok. And again, that goes back to why people are willing to pay so much to live in those areas of Makati and BGC, because they want to get away from the crime. All right, and next con is lots of scammers. Most expats that come here are men getting scammed. Romance scamming is very big in the Philippines. The Philippines is one of the romance scam capitals of the world. I suspect it's up there, if not higher than Thailand. That being said, even men scam. If you've been here long enough, you'll be undoubtedly solicited to invest in some sure thing by a friend or someone you think is your friend. And I've heard stories of expats being asked to go on trips with a group of friends only to find out that they were expected to flip the bill for the entire group. And I want to emphasize that most Filipinos are good people and genuinely friendly. But you do need to be mindful that some will take advantage of you because they see you as a human ATM. Well, you can definitely find some heartbreaking stories on the internet. The fact is, according to my own research study where I surveyed over 200 men living here in the Philippines, most Western men who are married to Filipinas are quite happy. And that's one of the biggest perks. So overall, Manila can be a great place if you know what to expect. So I always say, be cautious, not paranoid when dealing with locals, and understand that the Philippines is not going to change just because you don't like it. You must be the one to change in order to adapt to living in the Philippines. But it's a great place. You just kind of got to be ready. So I hope you found this video helpful and useful. Thank you very much. God bless.